Hey, everybody, this is Ben here with the Point by Patrol. I'm here with Robert, and Robert has just completed his first 3 track days. But what this podcast is really about is what to expect after your first track day. And he's had these fairly back to back within like 2 or 3 weeks' time. Has had those track days completed, and so he went out there, just wanted to be out there, um, and just really to see what it was all about, the culture of the whole thing, and just to learn how to do it in the first place. And so his takeaways are super important because I just had a podcast that was talking specifically about um, what to bring to your first track day. And I kept that list fairly short because I want to encourage people that are interested in doing this kind of thing. Don't be scared. Just get out there. I made the list short on purpose because we don't want to make it too cost prohibitive for somebody that's trying to approach the sport in the first place. And the good news is when you get out there, you're going to meet a bunch of knowledgeable people, but there are certainly some things that may give you a little anxiety when you first get out there. And Robert's going to be able to probably answer some questions here about how he felt beforehand, how he felt he was prepared beforehand, and really what it was like after that first day, what he felt he learned from that first day, how he might prepare his car differently after that first day. So, Robert, I guess I'm going to start with a question to you. And what do you feel like? Were you apprehensive? When,
Uh, this first day, no, I actually wasn't. I was, because I know that the biggest thing I was always scared of was like, oh, like the car's gonna fall apart or something's gonna break off. But seeing, like, I know that other people would do it, so I knew that the car can handle it. I was always probably overthinking about the cooling issue. That was a big thing. So I always hear people like when they talk bad about the car, even like the FTA, one lap and it'll overheat. And because I live in Florida, it gets really, really hot here, especially during the summer.
oh
And
yeah,
I'm like, man, I mean, just walking down the street, you're like dying in the heat. So I can't imagine how my car's gonna feel. So, and yeah, that was my biggest thing. Like, it was it gonna just like spontaneously blow up? I remember you were saying you had at one point your coolant tank was like squirting out coolant or something like that.
it still does it to this day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, um, yeah, that was my biggest concern. And the other thing was like prep. So, I had to get all the tools and get everything so that I felt comfortable working on the car, like doing an oil change and doing brake pads, because that's one of the things that I feel like you just need to know. And some people will like pay someone to do it, but it's going to cost if you're planning on going out.
this is true. It's super important to kind of learn how to do your own track maintenance, but it's never a bad idea to have your car double checked by a professional
Yeah.
prior to going out to the track.
Yeah.
Especially for tech inspection, they do recommend that you don't complete that yourself.
Yeah. And
Yep.
yeah. Cause when I go, it's like, oh, just check this. I'm like, oh, I mean,
Yep.
sure. It's, and the thing too is a lot of this stuff, it's like, I don't really know, like, I'll watch a do it yourself video, but it's like, I don't really know exactly what I'm doing. I'm just like following. And that's why I like some of your videos because you were like kind of giving, like, explaining what you were doing and what to look out for. And, for someone like me, that's like, I just like, just follow whatever thing without even really knowing.
I try to keep it calm as best I
Yeah.
as best I can. What, and you don't have to throw an exact figure on this. Um, First, what did you do to the car before you went? And tools included kind of into the cost factoring here, as well as your preparations. Round about how much did you spend?
Um, so what I did to the car, the first thing I did was, or part of the prep was I did the oil. I used 5W30 because I live in Florida, so that's, and I feel like
Let's go.
Bolt 0W20, I feel like it's just too.
It's water.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I got Amsoil because I've heard they're really good.
Yep.
Um, I did the brake um fluid change. So I got the higher temp, and I got SRF Castrol.
Castrol. Yep. That's the only thing to use.
That's I'm just gonna do what everyone else does. And then for the pads, I did the Paragon RS3s.
Okay.
Um, for the total cost of the tools, I would say roughly about $2,000, but I
Yeah.
got some of them on sale. So the reason why it took so long for me to kind of like get into it was I was waiting for Father's Day and Christmas sales. So I got my basic ratchet tool set for $100, even though I think it was like three. It was the DeWalt one at Costco.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the tools I went a bit bougie, I guess, because I know that if it's hard, I'm not gonna do it. So I'm like, I just get the better tools. So I got electric torque wrenches, so I can see and just man and set the foot panels and
It makes it easier.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I got like 1/2, 3/8, and 1/4 ratchet for all those. That's probably overkill, but
No, I wouldn't say so. And I think $2,000 is a fair number.
yeah. The
Especially,
biggest one was the lift. I got a jack lift.
and not everybody's going to have to do that. So
Yeah,
that
yeah.
that could
That's
cost.
just because it's like I need that time to kind of like see what I'm doing and
Yeah.
long and
Yeah. For some folks, that'll cut the cost down tremendously if you're not using a quick jack. But the quick jacks are nice. I'm still kind of old school, and I've been used to just crawling around on the ground under the car with a set of ramps. And I mean, granted, I could always take it to work and put it on a lift, but sometimes I just, the self-hate just hits me, and I need to get out into the garage and just crawl around on my back for no reason. But the 2000, did that also include your track preparation, so your pads, your fluid?
so
Okay. Add a little bit more.
yeah. So the pads, I actually spent a little bit more than what you were supposed to, because I got confused when I got the pads, because I thought, for some reason, I thought like if you order the fronts, like it's not a set. I thought it was like, oh, it's like it's just the left side, not yeah. So I
ordered more than one set of pads.
Yeah, so I basically got two sets, front and rear.
You're gonna use them. So, I mean, that falls into the category of consumables. So your brake fluid, your tires, and your pads, those are going to be ultimately your biggest expenses. And then there's track insurance. I don't know if you got that or not, but
the very first day, actually, I didn't get it because I didn't really know how it worked. I just paid for the admission fee or whatever, and I got there and I was like, hey, someone was like checking, I got this registration thing. They were checking people in. I was like, oh, you know how track insurance works? And she was like, oh, just go talk to that guy. And throughout the day, I kind of forgot about it. So I didn't even get it. I was like, oh, wow.
Well, that's kind of how
I think it's like 360 around there.
It shouldn't be that much for one day. Usually for a weekend, I could see that, depending on how much you're trying to insure the car for. I mean, there are a lot of people running around that still owe money on the car, and they don't want to go to the track because they're like, I owe money on the car. Newsflash, folks, I owed money on the white car that I crashed, and track insurance made me whole, and it covered my modifications. So even if you owe money on the car, they're still going to pay off your bank note plus your modifications. Keep your receipts. And that's really ultimately all it comes down to.
You said you can get insurance for a day, because
certain companies will.
okay.
Yeah,
because the one I've been using, I've noticed it. I just realized it. It's like the whole weekend.
Yeah, oftentimes they are, but you can shop around for single day events.
Okay.
It just depends on which company that you're going with, and there are actually several to choose from. But for like an entire weekend, I would say if you're insuring the car for $45,000 to $50,000, 350 to 380 is the sweet spot. Now, if you go with Haggerty, it's going to probably be a little bit more, but their coverage terms are a little bit better, but also getting the policy in the first place and declaring all of your modifications ahead of time is more time consuming. But it is Haggerty, and they do look out for you, especially if you're having problems with the insurance company, since they're basically, the go-between. Uh,
Is it cheaper if you do it like preemptively? Like, if
doesn't seem so. I've actually literally bought track insurance the same day that I arrived to the track, and it was the same price that I had paid before. I also will not ride with somebody that does not have track insurance, because there's a lot of risk involved. I will not drive there. I will not do a demonstration drive with them either. Track insurance covers instructors as well. So if the instructor is driving your car or is in the car with you and people get hurt, it helps. Now, the clubs do have insurance too. So if you are an instructor in a club and the student, say, doesn't have track insurance, the clubs will have insurance, for injuries and things of that nature. Otherwise, they're not allowed to operate. They're not allowed to rent the track. So, important thing to know, but I always carry it. I've never not carried it. The one thing that I didn't do was I didn't have a Hans device, and I don't know how many times, like more than a year without a Hans device until I developed bad habits. Once the instructor got out of the car, I decided, I know better. I'm just going to develop some bad habits, and then I went out and flipped the thing, 5 times. So, turns out that what your instructors tell you is good information, and don't be like me. So I now have Hans' device, not allowed back on the track without it, according to many people that love me. And if you don't have one, get one, because even if you're not the one that causes the incident, you could be involved in one. So let's talk about, you completed your first track day, the contrast in knowledge between the start of that day and the end of that day. Like, what kind
that
of
was
things?
huge. Sometimes when I drive, like if I'm taking a turn and it's kind of slow, like just on the street, sometimes I kind of like will ride the clutch a little just so the car won't stall. One of the first things I was realizing when I was on there is I was doing that in turns, and I could feel like the car really become unsettled,
Yes.
and I could smell like the smell of burnt clutch.
Yep.
And yeah, I spun out pretty quickly doing that.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so that was one thing that I realized very quickly.
Well, and the important thing here, and something that you just brought up, obviously, is what you do on the track easily translates to the street, and it can change how you drive on the street. It actually, in my opinion, makes you a safer driver on the street,
Yeah.
because you're more reactive to different things, and you have better car control, personally, in a situation where maybe, again, you're not the one that's the cause of this. It could be someone else. And so that's a really good point. And I'm glad you brought that up. So, what else?
Um, the other thing I was doing, I noticed was that I kind of noticed it earlier, but like when shifting or upshifting, sometimes my foot would touch the throttle, so it'd be like kind of over revving in a way. Um,
That
which
may actually be the car and not you. It does do that.
Oh, okay. I've kind of noticed that it does it, but it was made the first few times. It was totally me.
Yeah.
Um, one of the other things I noticed was that with my brakes, and I've seen it a lot now that it was shown to me, was that I would be on the brakes, which was good, but I would let go during the corner, and now I know is I can feel it now is that would upset the balance of the car, so it would shift the weight all the way to the rear and kind of upset the car.
And
So
you ended up understeering a
yeah,
lot. Yeah. Yep. Well,
um,
so, I mean, that's another
yeah. I
big
mean,
point.
there's a lot because
Yeah.
and I really wouldn't say there were mistakes because I just didn't know any better. It was more like just learning and
And you're getting out there in a safe space to do it. Like
yeah,
there's runoff room. Yes, there are walls and there are tire walls and metal walls and grass to go through, but there's a lot more room than on a public road to make those mistakes safely.
yeah,
And it makes you a better driver on the public road.
yeah,
And it makes you a better driver on the track too. So
yeah,
I think that the two translate back and forth. And in general, if you're smoother on the track, you're probably a smoother driver on the road too. Um, and these are all wonderful things, especially with the brakes. And I've been in the car with students that hop off the brakes, and it's because trail braking is not necessarily something that you do on the road.
yeah,
Um,
totally.
Typically on the road, you're doing something more along the lines of what we would call chauffeur braking. Chauffeur braking is trying to make that, you're trying to slow down and get to a stop as smoothly as possible. Whereas on the track, you're threshold braking when you're coming off of a straight. You're trying to slow down as fast as humanly possible.
Yeah,
But then if there's a corner at the end of it, and of course there always is, the smart thing to do is to trail those brakes through that corner. And so it compresses that threshold braking zone. Like instead of braking at the 4, you may need to do the 3.5 or the 3 and carry a little bit more speed through the corner. And so again, these are all things that translate back and forth. And, while I'm not recommending racing on the road,
yeah,
it's a smoother feel in some cases, in others it may not be. I find myself chauffeur braking or I call it a reverse trail brake in certain corners. And it's not me trying to upset the balance, but it is me trying to play with the tail of the car just a little bit. But that comes with a lot of track days.
yeah. The other thing I noticed, I remember I was doing was, what was it? I wouldn't, I would get, I've heard it before, like where you're getting kind of,
Tunnel vision.
yeah, and I wasn't looking ahead.
Yeah.
And that's always kind of hard because it's like, I'm going to this turn at 90. How am I
Yeah,
supposed to look ahead? I want to make sure I'm not going off the road.
of
I
course.
kind of struggle with it too now where I'm like, man, I'm not trying to like crash right now. So I'll hit the apex and then I'll start looking ahead. But
Well, I'll be honest. That's something that I still have to work on that personally. But what I find that helps is track time at the same track, because once you know what to expect in each place, your brain is less concerned about it because you're like, this is second nature. I know what I'm doing. Um, and it relaxes you to the point where you feel more comfortable looking further
yeah,
ahead. Now, it does translate to new tracks eventually,
yeah,
but it takes,
see that.
get comfortable at a specific track first, learn the lessons that that track has to give you, and then try a different one. And you may find that, okay, maybe this different one's a little bit more difficult, and you realize that you're not looking very far ahead.
Yeah,
That's okay.
yeah,
It's completely okay, especially if you make yourself aware of the fact that you're doing it, because then you're like, okay, wait, I need to, yes, I'm focusing on this section right now, is ultimately what I'm doing. And once I have this section down to a point where I feel comfortable, it then becomes second nature. And I can then look ahead and focus on the next thing that I'm trying to learn. And it took me, I mean, I've got more than 800 laps at VIR, and it has taken me at least that long to feel more comfortable looking ahead, because there's so many technical areas, so many things. You've got
yeah,
traffic, you've got flags, you've got the flag stations, you've got, you know, the car
yeah.
blew up in front of you,
Yeah,
there's
it's a man.
there,
And the other thing too is it's like it just happens like so fast that and a lot of times it's really hard to even like process like what even
to do.
happened.
Fast things happen fast when you're going fast. And until you get used to it, your mind doesn't slow down. You're overstimulated. Um, but you will get used to it. The more you do this, the more relaxed you get. When you're relaxed, let the punches come. The punches will come. People will blow up their car right in front of you. I've had it happen to me. People blow out tires right in front of you. It also happened to me. You're going to see you're probably going to see crashes. You're going to see all sorts of weird stuff that should be and is unsettling.
Yeah.
100% unsettling. And you know, you learn how to deal with it in your own way, but you also develop the tools that you need to have that second nature response to what that stimuli is. So that just comes with seat time. Perfection of the line comes with seat time. Perfection of the braking technique comes with seat time. Even how you use your throttle pedal, it comes with seat time. So I'm encouraging you, and I'm encouraging everybody else. If you're hooked and you've already done it 1, 2, 3 times, keep going. It's just like, before we started this, I was telling you about how I'd kind of put my guitar down, and that it, it would take a lot of practice for me to even be able to play a song that I could even recognize at this point. Whereas back in the past, I was actually pretty good at it.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with the track. It's not like a bicycle at all. It's one of those things that you have to constant, deliberate practice.
Yeah. And I'm starting to notice that, like the very first time I went on there compared to, well, my first day was kind of cut abruptly because I tire blowout or something. But the second time I went out there was way less jarring compared to the first. And, I mean, like, I'm not someone who's like overconfident. I leave my ego at the door. But when I was with the instructor, I mean, I would, because it was my first time, and there were a bunch of Camaros and Corvettes out there, and some of them were trailer. I'm like, oh geez, I mean, and I think my first day was really nice because there was another guy who was in a Chevy Cobalt SS. So we were like, front wheel drive bros, and he was new too, and he was getting instruction. So we were both out there doing it. And then when the other people came on, I remember I passed some guy in like a 911 GTS, and then another guy in a Camaro. So my confidence was going up, and towards the end of one of my sessions, what did I do? I went off track. Uh, so that session, when I passed those two cars, I was fine. And then towards the end, there was like a Miata and a Z4. I felt good about passing a Miata. That's stupid me. And then I was getting ready to pass a Z4. And on that turn, it's not a hard braking zone, but like you can go too fast. It's like you just kind of like coast through. And I was feeling good, and I didn't coast, I didn't brake or anything. And the Miata saw me, and I think the guy's son was in the Z4, so they probably saw the whole thing. And I actually got kind of scared when I went off track because it was kind of like your crash where the car started to go sideways, but it went on track. I got some traction, and I kind of ended up backwards. But after that, I was like, yeah, let me get off track. It'll stick for a while.
Yeah. Yep. The grass is green ice, man. 100%. And my ride was pretty rocky. The tires were not in contact with the ground a lot because there were hills, and it was like jumping, and the steering input, like, it was completely loose. There was nothing I could have done. I would have ended up rolling the other way, and probably something worse could have happened.
Yeah.
Going end over end was terrible, but flipping is actually a really, really good way of absorbing G-force. So,
really?
Yeah, had I stopped completely dead instead of, breaking that inertia out over a period of rolls, it could have been much worse for me, especially since I wasn't wearing a Hans device. A crash, I was probably 65 to 70 miles an hour when I hit that berm. And if it was a dead stop,
Yeah.
8 Gs, 9 Gs.
Yeah, to a stop. This was at VIR.
Yeah. Yep. Didn't know the ditch was down there. I thought I was just going to ride it out. All the classroom sessions had said, hey, if you mess up at turn 10, just go off into the grass. Mine was at turn 9, but I was like, well, 10's right there. I can see 10. So, I'm going for a ride. And then I saw the ditch, and the ditch during the summertime is completely grown over with grass and everything like that. I didn't notice it until I noticed it.
Yeah.
Um, so is
Yeah.
what it is, but I learned valuable lessons from it. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
my steering input, I stay at 9 and 3 now as best as I can. Sometimes I'll move just a little bit, but I was wheeling the car. I was wheeling that car. I let the tires get greasy as hell, and I kept pressing them and pressing them and pressing them until they couldn't offer grip anymore.
Yeah.
It was my fault, 100%. I picked up bad habits and I let it bite me. So that's why I decided to
Kind of take a step back and reassess.
and get out and start doing this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because I don't want it to happen to anybody else. Like, you spin your car on the grass because you're pushing a little hard. Nobody gets hurt. Your car doesn't get hurt. No harm, no foul. It's when you bang up your car, total your car, hurt yourself, hurt somebody else. It can all be avoided, and that's the point of why I do this. Like, you can avoid it.
Yeah.
You can. You can.
Yeah.
It is in your mind to say, you know what? Not today.
Yeah. Yeah. So we were talking a little bit off camera, and you talked about meeting like the community and having some friends. So the first day, I didn't really make any friends there because I kind of left early. But the second time, I met someone that lives near me because the track is like 2 hours away. So he lives in the same city, but he had a friend who's like a professional like race coach that he met from sim racing. And they were together like coaching, or I don't know what they had 2 cars out there. I guess one of the cars they're planning on taking it to a competition. Um and I struck up a conversation with them because they were like parked next to me, and towards the end of the day, the coaches did a little like a one session for me, and then he drove the car a few times to show me kind of what he was talking about. And the last time I went, we went together because we traded numbers, and the race coach is like, he's from Europe or something, so he doesn't live, he just visits us, the front here. But the American that lives near my city, he had to leave for his son or something, so just me and the race coach together, and got really good high quality instruction. And I remember the first time, I guess my wheel wasn't centered on the hub. So my wheel, first turn, I spun out, and I could hear something loose. I'm like, oh, that's not good. So I pulled off, and they were like, oh, your tire's not centered, or like it's off. Looks like I had a really lot of camber or something. So we torqued it down. I could hand screw the lug nuts off. I'm like, oh, that's not good.
Nope, that's bad.
Yeah. So we retorqued them down. I went out again. Same exact thing happened. And then we went off, and first time we torqued them, I guess it didn't work because I was in the grass when we retorqued them. And the second time we're on like flat level. And
yeah, you weren't square. You weren't square on the hub centric, right?
But I was telling him, I was like, man, thanks, guys. Because I'm like, if I would have like no idea like what happened. And even on the second day, I remember I posted in the forums about the fuel starvation thing, because I'm like, oh man, the first day my tire blows out and my car's lighting up like a Christmas tree. It feels like it's dead. I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
Thankfully, it was the fuel. So having that community really helps significantly.
Good information is hard to find. Good community is hard to find. I will say that the one that we're a part of, it's good.
Yeah.
I've owned a few cars, been a part of a few forums, and I would say that in general, the folks on our forum mean well. So
Yeah, because my other car I had is the Mustang, the GT 350, and I didn't buy it when it was new, but I bought it like a 2020, the last model year, and that's when COVID was going on, so everyone was inside. I was pretty heavily into the forums, and there really wasn't any sort of like track jockey post. It was more like there were a few builds up, but it wasn't like everyone. There
how
was
many crowds can you
yeah.
kill? Yeah,
There were a
yeah.
few friends that I made like through private messaging because they were kind of because I was like, I wanted to track it, I wanted to do this and that, and I became friends with them, but there was no like public kind of like. And still, I looked recently, there's like nothing. So
Well,
it's
everything we're talking about right now, it, you know, that goes with any brand, not just Civic Type R's. Track prep, it's going to be the same on most vehicles, right? As well as what you're going to garner as far as learning information um, from going to the track, regardless of what car you drive. Um, and the good news is our forum, the cars are pretty well tested, especially with the FK8 kind of leading up to the FL5. And so there was a lot of good information that was able to transfer over. Um, and there are definitely some fast forwards out there. There are. And you said something earlier that really sparked my interest. I remember being scared by the type of car. I was like, oh my God, it's a GT350, or oh my God, it's a Corvette Z06, ZR1, whatever it might be. And then like my fifth track event, I'm like passing all these guys
yeah,
in a Honda Civic, and I was like,
yeah.
hmm,
I've read a lot about that, and it's like I remember a while ago, even before all this, I remember someone was saying the fastest car is like the dude in this whatever dude is in this clapped out car because you can have a $300,000 Ferrari or GT3 RS and the dude in a 5,000 Miata clapped out is gonna give not care or anything is gonna drive that car like till the wheels fall off and not care versus the guy in that he's gonna be way more careful and
well, there's also another big point. Doesn't matter what car you drive, it's the skill level that you have. You put a skilled driver in a C8, I'm gone. He's passing me 100% of the time. I have been passed by BRZs, and the guy was going around corners on two wheels. Um, and I ran into him a few sessions ago. Same story. I could not keep up with basically stock engine BRZ suspension mods, lots of suspension mods. The guy's just a better driver than I am. And and it takes a lot of time on the track to realize that it's okay to say that. There are better drivers out there that and there are better drivers that come out with better tools than you have. And I'm not talking about wrenches and stuff like that. I'm talking about skills. Uh, and no matter what you put them in, you're going to learn something.
yeah,
It could be a Miata, like here, drive that guy's Miata, and then he passes you in it.
yeah,
Drive that guy's C8. He teleports to the next, to the end of the next straight.
yeah,
So driver skill super duper comes into play, but also comfort. Um, and I can't talk about that enough. Like this stuff transitioning to second nature so that your brain isn't so busy, it only comes with experience. And that's when you can get out there and you're less stressed and you actually start having like serious fun. Like it's
yeah.
fun to begin with, but it gets even more fun the more you do it.
Yeah. The third day when I was with the race coach and towards the end, because that's when I learned about trail braking or like brake modulation and
Mhm.
really like he would take me out. Thankfully there wasn't anyone on there because I do the open track days and I was struggling like for the throttle I could modulate it very, very well, but it was just the brake pedal I was really struggling. So we went out there, weren't even going fast, but he was just showing me, go into the brakes, get the feel, and then peel off. And we were just going really slow and slowly increased the speed. We did 5 laps, went out, reassessed, went back out there. And towards the end, I was really getting the hang of it and really going. And I felt like one thing I remember he told me was whenever you like never go, the only time you need to go like 10 tenths is when you're doing a qualifying one. When you have that one lap, you give it all. But if you're just going out there and you're doing your regular times, even in professional racing, you're only driving like 8 or 9 tenths. You don't go out there like saying, okay, I went fast in this corner. I can gain by, just easing, pushing out that braking zone just a little bit more. That's how people crash is, and he was saying just drive 9 tenths and you'll be completely fine. And that's when I did when I was out there. I got a few laps, I got the hang of it. I started to drive about 8 tenths, 9 tenths, not over driving myself, and it felt really, really good. And how everything was hooking up, I
Yep.
could feel the nosedive, and I could feel the traction going when I would peel off, and with the throttle, it just everything just connected. So it's really good when you can really connect and start developing those skills and really like understand like what's going on and like how to become a better driver. And it's really good when you have someone that can kind of get
Explain it to you like that. Yeah.
yeah.
I think of the three primary inputs as rubber bands, and you're only going to get so much stretch out of each. Your braking, your steering, your throttle, they're all rubber bands. And once one's overextended, you don't have any stretch in the other. So
Yeah. Yeah. He was telling me for front wheel drive cars, there's this thing called like string theory. Have you heard of that?
yeah, it's
Yeah,
so
where
tire string to the steering wheel, one to your toe. Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. It's like you only have so much, or it's like you give and take. You can only do this, and then you got to be on this. So,
Well, and with front wheel drive too, I mean, if you're using all of your front tires for the brakes, you don't have any steering. It, so
the other thing too, I remember he was telling me too, is like you can mention it too when you before your crash is that when you're going 10 tenths, full out, your tires are that's another thing to look out for. So there were a few times where I spun out and I just kept driving like there was like nothing. Like, oh, like, spun out, okay, that's fine. Reset, and he told me he was like, you can't do that because the tires are just gonna overheat it. Say that you got a really quick corner fast, those tires are gonna be hotter because you're going fast, and the more you go, the more heat that they're getting. So, yeah, that was one thing I didn't know. I thought, oh, a crash or you go off track or something, just go and you're good. But no, you still gotta manage or be aware of that. Your grip and your grip is a lot less, so you can't do that turn as you normally would because you just made a mistake, and now
exactly.
you're kind of messing up. So
Everything's give and take, and what changes
yeah,
more in any kind of professional racing is tires. So those guys are out there, all they're doing for the most part is managing tires. It's the only thing holding you to the road. And ultimately, one of the biggest reasons I crashed, I let them get greasy. And you know what? When they're greasy, inertia does not slow down. Not the same way, not in the same way. So, like through that specific corner, I could let off and know that I was going to lose X number of miles per hour. I was off throttle and the car didn't slow down. It's because the tires couldn't do it anymore. They were smoked. They needed it. They needed a rest, and they ultimately got one, just the wrong way. But these are all huge key points, and I think we should probably do this again because this is fun.
yeah,
Because the more that you progress through this, the more your mindset's going to change,
yeah,
and the more you're going to start. Like people tell you things, right? They're like, "Oh, you're going to get here. You're going to get here, and don't worry, you'll be there." You're not there till you're there,
yeah.
and it's hard to look back in retrospect if you're not there yet. So once you get there, and I'm really happy to have a chance to talk to somebody like you because you've reminded me of things that I've forgotten that happened to me.
Yeah.
Like things that I just put in the rear view and just focused on moving ahead. And um, it's important, I think, especially for instructors, to try to get back into that mindset of the guy that's fresh to the track,
Yeah.
because it's easy for us to forget what it was like for us.
Yeah. 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 I'd say actually at any track, I'd say the first time I went, the first time, the hardest thing was because you're going so fast and the instructor is like, go this, do this. I can't really, for one, you can't really hear because, the windows are down and I have the heating on full blast. So, it took a while, but I think the instructor understood that because after like 5 laps, we came out and reassessed. One thing,
You didn't have comms?
no, well, the instructor's right next to me. So now there's off a voice. There's no like,
I've never not used comms. Instructors, when I get in somebody's car, I bring the comms with me. You slip it into your helmet. So
you both
we
can
can
hear each other on
we can
the,
talk we can talk like we're talking right now and hear each other like we're hearing each other right now, despite all the wind noise. So I'm actually kind of shocked that that didn't happen for you. Um, Comms are cheap, by the way.
oh, they are.
Yeah, they're not expensive. It's a box with basically microphone to earpiece thing, and you just shove it up inside of your helmet. Um, so you can hand one to whoever you're riding with, and then one for yourself. And it's like us having a conversation like we are right now. Super important, because not being able to hear your instructor, and you guys are like shouting at each other, that had to 100% have added to your anxiety. So
Yeah, well, it was more of like, that when we pulled off the first time, it was the fact that he was telling me to, um, like off one of the main streets, there's a turn, and it's not like a hairpin turn, it's kind of like a wide turn. And he was saying to go into third gear, and it's not like I'm money shifting the car, but it's like, I'm going 70 or whatever. I'm going at a high rate of speed. I don't want to like just downshift. That seems,
it can be jarring for the car.
yeah, or
Yeah.
just, it just seems jarring in general. Um, and the other thing was when he was telling me to upshift, that was the other problem is I was kind of driving the car like it was naturally aspirated, but because it's turbo, you don't need to line it out completely. You have some wiggle room because you get all the torque. And it dies out as the higher you go. So that was kind of jarring, why am I upshifting when I'm not at the top of third or
Yeah.
so some of those things. But when we went off, I, was like, okay, the braking zones, this and that. Because when you go on there, they talk about turn one. I mean, via ours, it'd probably be crazy because it's even a longer track. And they were saying, turn one, turn three, turn four. It's like never even been on it, so I don't know. Like, I
These
don't
are
know.
all
I don't really know the racing lads. And I guess if you played it in like a video game or something, you can have a reference.
it's not the same.
No,
And YouTube videos don't really help until you've driven the track yourself.
yeah,
And it can be hard to, like, how do you know you're watching a YouTube video of a person who knows what they're doing?
yeah, exactly.
I still have several videos posted out there with me, like, doing the crazy steering thing. And it's like, please don't do what I did.
Yeah, and a lot. It's like the coach was even showing it to me as we were catching up to some of the people. And it's like, I mean, some people just don't know what they're doing. And it's not like they're not safe or maybe they just don't know because there's not, they're a bad driver. There's, like me just making mistakes.
They
But
don't know. Yeah.
it's like from an outside perspective, as like a beginner, you see those people and you're like, okay, oh, that's badass. Like, oh, you would assume that this person knows what they're doing. But once you acquire the skill set or
It
get some
becomes,
knowledge, you
yep.
can start picking things apart and like,
It
hey, like,
becomes obvious when
as you
they
do.
are, yeah. when they're in turmoil and you've got the skill set behind you, you know they're in
Yeah.
turmoil.
And that was what was going on in this on the second time I went out where I was beating some more like higher horsepower cars. There was a Mustang race car. It was the like one S197, the previous one.
Mhm.
And I could literally, when I caught up to him, I could literally see like where he was braking. And I remember the instructor was telling me like, how to handle these corners. I could see literally he was braking where like he shouldn't have braked. He could have just hit the gas or did something like, man, once you catch up to someone, like you get that rear view cam, you can really see like, okay, that's why I'm here because he's not doing that.
Well, and the important thing to learn there is don't do what they're doing. Don't get
Yeah.
locked in. Do not follow the white rabbit. Don't do it. You know, take the blue pill. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, for sure.
uh, you brought up some amazing points, and I'm so happy that we got you on. And I think it's going to be a big value to everybody in the community to kind of listen to this, and even for folks that even have more experience, it's going to dial them back and let them remember what it was like when they were new. And
Yeah.
all you're going to be doing in the meantime, as you get back out to the track, is you're going to be progressing and progressing and progressing. And I want you to keep doing that. I applaud you for doing it, and I'm so happy that you went out and did it. Don't ever stop. And it'd be wonderful. You get to the point where you get to be the guy in the passenger seat, showing somebody else the ropes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
thanks. I always wanted to do it, and I think the whole New Year's resolution thing kind of pushed me. I was like, all right, well, I got all my tools now, and it's winter time, so it's really cool out. It's like perfect weather. It's 60, 70 degrees, so I have absolutely no excuses. So now is
All,
perfect
all,
time.
all it is money, right?
Yeah, and that's the
Yeah.
thing I realized. That's why I'm getting the BRZ so I can really feel the difference. And even now, like compared to the GT350, it's like I probably sound dumb for saying this, but it feels faster because it's just like the weight difference is so significant. It just, I guess maybe the perception of speed is faster because I notice in the Civic, it's like I can
It'll,
go 35 on one of my favorite turns and it feels faster in the Civic versus the Mustang, where it's like it just kind of feels like a tank or like a bear that's
Wait,
really fast rather than like something really smooth, like a jackrabbit or something.
weight plays a huge role, and the BRZ is actually an excellent car, especially with the flat four that's in it. They designed the suspension that beautifully, and they also designed a center of gravity to kind of go along with that. Those things can turn so fast; it is insane. Now, they're not really fast in the straights,
Mm-hmm.
but they could whip your butt in the corner.
Yeah.
That's for sure. That's for sure. Well, I've got to head out.
All right.
Um, So this is Ben here with the Point by Patrol, thanking Robert for joining in. We're definitely going to post this as many places as I can, and we're going to do this again. You better hop back on here
For
with me.
sure.